Howdy, guys. Jimmy Song here. I wanted to reflect a little bit on what's been going on in the past year in my life. It was about a year ago that I left my sort of corporate job at Paxos, and I started doing my own thing. I started being my own boss, and I wanted to reflect on some of the changes that it's brought into my life as a result. Um, a lot of that was spurred on by some of the thinking that I did after taking Jordan Peterson's self-authoring course, and sort of figuring out what my values were and seeing how I can sort of contribute to the world based on that, and coming up with different business ideas that I thought would be great. Now, like the past year has been absolutely crazy, right? I think I've traveled 4 different continents. I've gone to Europe a few times. I've been to Asia a couple times. I've been to South America. I've obviously been in North America. I'm trying to see if I can go to Australia and Africa, and then I would only be left with like Africa or something, or Antarctica or something. Um, and I've spoken all over the world. I've taught like 400 people on programming blockchain. I'm writing a book. I'm now a venture partner at Blockchain Capital. I'm doing consulting. I'm doing advisory stuff. All of this stuff has more or less happened ever since I left my corporate job. And I wanted to reflect on that, right? Like, what's the big difference? Why did I do it? How did it come about, and all that stuff? Well, first, it took a really long time for me to sort of get up the gumption or courage to actually go off on my own. It took me a couple of months. I was like, okay, well, I have this idea. I think people would pay for it. If I can create a seminar where people can actually learn all about Bitcoin, I think that would be great. I think a lot of people, need this. The industry needs this. It's a win for them. It's a win for me. It's a win for the community. It's a win for the companies. So I thought it was a win-win-win-win-win. But at the same time, I was really scared. And I was scared because I didn't know there's a lot of uncertainty around starting a business. I don't know if people would pay for it, and I don't know if I would be able to position it properly. I don't know. I didn't know if I was going to be able to teach it well. And that was a big concern. And it is for any small business starter. It's what if you fail? The thing I realized, though, is that I could always come back to the corporate world, right? Like I can always do something. I can go back and find another job and do those things, and it's okay. It's okay to take a shot and fail. So that was the main sort of mentality that I had that sort of finally got over the hump. I also had to sell some Bitcoin and make sure that I was okay in case I completely bombed. But that was probably the best decision I've made in a very, very long time. And part of that is because I've come to realize I was kind of a slave, a wage slave in a way, right? Like when you work for a company, they have you in a very limited role. Well, not very limited, depending on what your role is, but they want you to do a particular thing, and it doesn't necessarily utilize all of who you are, and the incentives aren't necessarily completely aligned, right? Like as a salaried worker, you don't necessarily care quite as much as somebody that owns a business. And I certainly care. I found that, like, from a motivation standpoint, I care way more about my business because I know exactly how much each decision, affects me, affects my bottom line. And this has had sort of like a profound effect on like how I see value now. I used to be, I think I am still kind of a frugal person, but previously, if something costs like $30, right? Somebody wanted $30 to do some service for me. I would be like, $30, and I would be thinking relatively. Nowadays, I think much more in terms of what value am I getting out of it instead of how much does that cost. It's much more about, okay, well, if they do this for me for $100, but I'm saving $300, totally worth it. Like not even a question. And then, I used to do a lot of things myself, like I put together furniture myself or whatever. But, I know exactly what my time is worth. So it's a lot easier for me to make those calculations and not be as cheap about it because I know that I can make it on the other end. and that's really powerful. And I think that's at the crux of the civilization benefit of Bitcoin. When more and more people think that way, in terms of knowing exactly what their time is worth, which you can really only do when you're in business for yourself. That makes it a lot easier to spend your money, right? Like because you know how much money you can make, and instead of thinking of it as a fixed thing, which most salaried workers sort of still have that mentality, you think much more in terms of profit and what return on investment and things like that. And that's led to me, I think being able to see the world a little more clearly. I'm able to see more opportunities. I've started something like 6 or 7 businesses, and I'm doing consulting. I'm obviously teaching people. I'm doing speaking. I've done hard forks for people. It's a completely different mentality as an entrepreneur, and it's been something I think that's been really good for me, because I'm able to see more clearly. I'm able to see the truth of what's happening, and I'm able to see sort of gaps in the marketplace and thinking, oh, you know what? If I had more time, I would actually go and do something there that would help me make money. And that's, I think, the ideal sort of capitalist world, is when everyone's thinking that way and they're going, okay, well, there's clearly a gap here, and I have the unique talents and abilities to be able to contribute that way. Because like, I love teaching, I love like writing and stuff like that, but these are not necessarily things that I really got paid for in the past. People always paid me to code, because that was sort of the most valuable skill that I had. And yeah, once in a while they'd ask me to go write a blog post or something like that. And once in a while they'd ask me to teach a class, teach my fellow developers something or other. But was I able to really get the full value out of those skills? Not really, not really. I mean, companies didn't really value that in me, but I valued that in me, and I was able to, utilize that in the market to make money. And I think that's ultimately what people end up doing in a really free market economy. See, right now we have a very rent-seeking economy where you get paid at most for like a couple of skills. Whereas, if you're in the free market, there are certain things that you have that are probably in a combination that not many other people have, and you can exploit that to make a good deal of money, because you're saving time or money for other people. And that, to me, is beautiful when things work that way, when it's a win-win for everybody, when you're adding wealth to civilization. That's beautiful. Anyway, hope that helps you. Hopefully that can inspire you to try things on your own, right? To be an entrepreneur, to find niches in the market that you are uniquely suited to go and provide goods and services for. I find this whole emphasis towards finding a career kind of stupid, because careers by definition have a particular path that you're following. But we're all unique. We have different talents and different skills and different backgrounds and different histories and everything else. Those, you can usually find a niche that's uniquely suited for you only if you follow nobody else, if you're the trailblazer in that regard. And so, I obviously wear this hat for a reason. Hopefully you guys can get some of that, to inspire you to try your own thing and see if you can find a place in the market that you can take advantage of and make a lot of profit from and add to the world. All right. This song is done.